Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. My name is Hannah McAllister. I am an agent with SimpleShowing here in Atlanta. We have joining us Josh, who is one of the sellers that recently just sold. As a matter of fact, we just closed today. So I'll let him introduce himself really quick.
My name is Josh Martin. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to have just sold my house.
Great. So wanted to ask a couple of questions. What we're going to do today is ask Josh what the experiences and process was like with selling as a flat fee. Josh has also had experience with buying and selling homes in the past. So Josh, what has it been like? How many homes have you sold?
It's kind of sad to say, but my wife and I have had a bit of a nomadic lifestyle for the last 15 years, but I believe this is the fifth or sixth property that we've sold.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say, is there one in particular story or instance, home that stood out that was like a really bad process? Have you had any bad experiences with selling homes?
I had a home that we tried to sell during the recession back in '09. It was bad mostly because the market was just absolutely terrible at the time, but we ended up, I think we put $80,000 down on that house and still had to take $10,000 to the closing table. So that was a tough situation. You win some, you lose some in this game, that's for sure.
Now, is there a home, the process that you've had that's been like really smooth, great, easy, like super quick closing?
This was far and away the quickest we have ever sold a house. I mean, the fact that the day that we listed it, or rather the day after that we listed it, had the very first person that came out and looked at the home and ultimately made an offer that was accepted. It was an outstanding offer. That was the one that moved the quickest, no doubt about it.
Good. So let me ask, how did you hear about SimpleShowing?
SimpleShowing, I believe, Hannah, you reached out to me first. I had the home listed for sale by owner for a very brief period of time over the summer months, the late summer of '18, and I'd received a text message from you that indicated that, hey, if you're interested in listing with me, this is the name of my company, this is the dollar amount that we'd be willing to sell your home for. And so I kind of mentally filed that away. We pulled the house back off the market. We weren't serious enough really about selling it at the time, and but had taken note of that message communication, then reached back out to Hannah at the end of the year.
Yeah, great. Let me ask this. Did you interview any other agents or talk to any other agents?
We did indeed. In fact, there was an agent that had also reached out to me, somebody that had lived in an adjacent neighborhood to the neighborhood, the home we just sold. I was impressed with the communication with her, and ultimately I had quite a bit of back and forth communication with her over the months leading into January of 2019. So we did ultimately interview her around, I guess, the first week of January. I was not as impressed with her in person. She was a nice lady, but she lacked decisiveness. Clarity in her communication was not there. The price was right. She was also willing to sell at a relatively low fee. But I just felt like I was going to be compromising on a service perspective, and I wasn't sure that my property was going to be marketed in the most effective way.
Okay. So what was your experience like when you met me? Like, walk through that process of like your first impression, your reservations, what you felt good about?
Sure, absolutely. So I messaged you as soon as this lady literally left my house after I'd interviewed her, and Hannah, you and I communicated some, 4 to 6 months ago, and I'm wanting to get you out here as quickly as possible, to have a conversation about selling this property. So the immediate turn on was that you were willing to do it for a flat fee of $5,000, honestly. But when you and I first communicated, you were very responsive to me. It was the late evening hours. I was actually a little bit surprised that you had responded to me at the time of day that you did. Just your positive communication, just immediately, your willingness to pick up the phone immediately and let's have a conversation about that. It sort of relieved some tension that I had immediately felt, because I felt like all my eggs were in one basket with this one lady, and I couldn't believe that I was so turned off with the interview experience with her. And so my communication with you was so positive, and I could tell that you were decisive. You were everything that this lady wasn't. And I just thought, wow, this is going to be fantastic. And so yeah, we had that initial conversation. and I was very excited about meeting you. I believe it was the following day.
Yeah. So let's walk through with our viewers and kind of from your side perspective of what it was like, the conversation that we had with the pricing strategy, how we went through that, how we decided what we were going to list at. I think there's a lot of value to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you came in with your list of comps, and I'm a person, I've done my own research. We've got everything at our fingertips nowadays, and we're in a neighborhood that is 5 to 8 years old, so I was aware of what most of the other homes that had sold in the neighborhood, what those floor plans were, also probably approximately what they had paid for these houses, and so I had my own real good idea on what I thought this house should probably be listed for. And I find it kind of ironic that you came in and said, this is what we ought to list it for, and it was within like $1,000 or $2,000 of what I'd come up with, and you had only researched this for several hours, so it's shown that you had done all the homework that was necessary in a very short period of time, which was in such contrast to this other agent that we had hired. That was a so-called full service or full commission agent that seemed she didn't know where we should price, and she was kind of looking at me like, well, what do you think we ought to do? And I thought, I know, but I'd like to know that you know.
Right.
And her strategy was pretty much just price it under where the guy was down the street, and that was not your mentality. Let's price it right.
Right.
We'll bring the right number of customers out here, and ultimately we're going to have people that are interested in it. So I was very impressed with the way you communicated and just how decisive and you were willing to take control and say, listen, I'm going to tell you what we're going to need to do with this house to get it ready, and certainly you did that. And you said, we're going to want to do this, we're going to want to do that, we're going to want to straighten this, and some of those things I was already aware of, but it was you told me the way it was, and I was very impressed with that.
Thank you. Well, so now that you've saved $8,000 in agent commission fees, let me ask, what are you going to do with the $8,000 that you saved?
It'll probably go into the new home. It'll allow us to buy more home, quite honestly.
Right.
So, yep.
And then where are you moving?
We're going to Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
Yep. So
Boise,
long way away
Idaho.
from Georgia. Yep.
That's the potato state, I believe,
That's
right?
right.
Am I
That's right. It's also the scenic state, so it says their license
Okay.
plates. But looking
Very
forward
cool.
to an outdoor lifestyle there.
Nice.
And we love to ski, and so that's the big draw to that area.
Very, very nice.
Could I add something else about my experience with you?
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is the proper time, but I just want to say that in no way, shape, or form did this ever feel like a discounted service in any way. I mean, the service level was as high or higher than anything I've ever received with any other agent that we've sold with. Your response rates were phenomenal. I was impressed with, even as we were going through the negotiation process, of your interest in getting me top dollar for the house, even though your money doesn't change. Your commission is still set at $5,000. I mean, it actually was like a little bit shocking to me. I thought I was going to have to be the one to say, no, I'd really like to get a few more $1,000, but just how you were within the negotiation process, and you told me, listen, Josh, this is where we're going to want to hold firm because this is what your house is worth. I think that's what impressed me the most. So I just wanted to
I appreciate
add that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and which is one reason that we're doing this Facebook Live, and we wanted to do this today, is to express that just because we are a discounted broker or a flat fee broker, whatever you want to label it, does not mean that the service is scam. It really all depends on the agent. That being said, I'm a firm believer in interviewing agents because every agent's different, and it really matters with type of personality that you have and what's important. So depending on your time frame. So I really appreciate you saying that, mentioning that. I think that's a very important statement and misconception. A lot that we receive are people that are hesitant, especially in the higher price point. Some homes sold for over $450 or in the $450 price point. So when you have a home at that level, that price point, it can be a little sketchy, or you can be a little turned off. So I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unreservedly recommend SimpleShowing and Hannah in particular. So.
Well, thank you. All right, guys, we're going to open it up for questions. If you have any questions for Josh specifically or myself about SimpleShowing, now is the time to ask. So feel free to type away, and let us know.
Cool. All right, we have one question. What exactly is included with the flat fee?
So, good question. Everything from a lockbox to yard sign, professional photos, that's very important. Managing negotiations all the way up through closing. So, depending on if you want an open house, we can do that. I personally have not done open houses. I've not seen any success with that, but we do offer one open house as well. So again, the same full services that you would expect from a traditional agent.
Okay. And Josh, a question from you. What are the main differences you experience with SimpleShowing compared to the other ways that you've sold in the past?
Paid less commission. Really, that's it. I mean, that is absolutely it. Hannah is second to none in, the quality of her communication and her directness, and I think her ability to negotiate, and she's very firm. And I gave up nothing, absolutely nothing, with this company.
And then another question. So you mentioned earlier that you were going to try to sell your house for sale by owner. Mm-hmm. Have you experienced success with that in the past? And why did you choose to use an agent instead of just continuing?
So we did do a for sale by owner when I lived in Colorado. It was also a time when there was extremely limited inventory. And so I thought, well, I'm in a position where I think I can negotiate through this and sort my way through it. And that worked out okay. There were certainly some instances where I thought, well, I don't have anybody representing me though, and what my best interests were. I think I was thankful that I was dealing with a buyer's agent though that seemed very honest and ethical, and so she helped me through the process. But certainly her interests were with her buyer predominantly, as they should have been. We're dealing with now the house that we just sold was selling at a price point that was quite a bit higher than that home that we sold in Colorado, and I think I just had that much more reservation with selling it on my own. Like I said, I did sort of list it earlier in the summer, or rather in the late summer months, and but did it with a lot of reservation, thinking, I don't know if I'm tactful enough to be able to work my way through this, and I just would feel more comfort to have somebody along with me, for a lousy $5,000 is sort of the way that I saw it. So I think that was the reason we decided not to do another for sale by owner. There's just a lack of comfort with it, especially at the price point that we're at here.
Josh, on that question for you, any advice that or what's your opinion or advice that you would give to for sale by owners now, especially if their home, we'll say, over the $300,000 threshold?
Yeah, well, certainly there's the cost savings associated with doing a flat fee, but at the same time, when you're dealing with this company, you're not giving up an ounce of the service or an ounce of achieving your maximum selling price. And, while I felt like I was pretty well educated to know what this house was worth, a lot of folks don't have the luxury of living in a neighborhood where all the homes were sold, to the folks in those neighborhoods in the last few years to be able to compare and contrast so clearly as I was able to. But even still, I still felt much more comfortable having somebody along for the ride with me, and to be able to communicate with a buyer's agent. And I can tell you that for certain in this instance, this would have been a challenging buyer agent for me to work with by myself. So I can't, I've never didn't even really think about that until now. Is that much more I appreciated having you on my side, and how this was just so easily worth the $5,000. I mean, I feel like
that's the ultimate question. Was it worth the $5,000?
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, I think you guys could charge, beyond that, and it would still be worth it. I don't know what the magic number is, if it's $7,500 or whatever, but I think your service is well worth the money. Well worth the money.
Glad to hear that. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Sure.
Bye.